Hello, welcome back to BLENDERSUSHI Live Coding. We're gonna continue with the exploration of Renderman render. So let's get started. We're gonna switch to compositing, set this to Renderman render, and I think this time we're gonna do a little bit of. We're gonna take a look at the shader. What is it called? Let me check. New. Add Renderman node 3, and the first shader we get should be the PxrSurface. Okay, this is one of my favorite nodes in Renderman render, I think, because it has this is one node that kind of like a hybrid kind of shader. So instead of it being diffuse or glass or metal or plastic and all this, or even skin, this PxrSurface is one node for pretty much everything. You can turn this into a shiny material, or you can turn it into glowing material, glass. It has everything basically. You can mix and match them. That's the idea, I think. So we even have this utility pattern that I don't know what this is for. Let's save this real quick. This is Renderman PxrSurface. Save. Okay, let's do something. Let's create a setup real quick. Alt G. It's gonna be the floor. New material, another PxrSurface material. Okay, with Suzanne here, we're gonna drop it on the floor. So let's see. Create animation, physics, active, passive, and just drop Suzanne. And I guess that's pretty good. And then we just apply transformation and get rid of the dynamic. Now we have Suzanne on the floor, and then we can smooth it, and then Control 3, quickly create a lamp, just area light, and I'm gonna duplicate it. So I have one light at the back like that, another one at the front. Looking at, okay, that should be pretty good. Back to compositing. Let's have a look at the shader of the light here. So this one, we have emission, and let's give it a bluish color, and the other guy yellowish color. You see, when we duplicate a lamp with a Renderman, we're actually creating a different node tree for each lamp. Now let's set up the camera and frame our monkey head. Okay, that should be good for now. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna call the it object for the image render. Let's see, image editor, Blender, it, switch to it, and try start interactive rendering, and it should be loading in the background. I noticed that sometimes when we click on PRman interactive renderer, the IPR, and this it will load, but it doesn't do the renderer, and I need to do a quick render and then do the IPR again, and then it will work after. Yeah, you need to do that kind of thing. So let's wait a few seconds. Maybe my resolution is a bit high. I should change this to 800. By 600. You see the IPR is doing nothing, and I'm gonna do like render PRMan, start interactive rendering, and okay, now it's working. Cool. The nice thing about this IPR is actually respecting the lamp position changes, so I can just move it, still work. Make this a bit larger so we can see the lighting from the front light. Okay, we have Suzanne there, and it's a plain white gray material because it's only like a diffuse. Now I'm gonna hide the 3D view. We don't need to see that, and this is the view that I think is best to explain this kind of thing. PxrSurface. So we just have the node tree here, and we have the render result here interactively changing. So if I change the diffuse color, for example, change it to blue, so it's gonna update accordingly. So this is like a real life render. If you are using cycles render, it's continuously doing the render, even though it's a bit slow, but that's okay. Maybe I can make it a little bit faster if I use the preview preset. Okay, so render, start interactive rendering. So with this guy, if you have, you see all this checkbox, they're gonna give you the ability to turn on and off a certain feature. So you can actually turn off everything, but if you do that, this node is gonna grow really quickly, and you get this hundreds of attributes, and you don't want to do that when you're doing it at the beginning. So it's better to actually doing it from the material panel here in the properties, because if you're doing it right here, everything is kind of cleaner. So you got the diffuse here, primary specular, rough specular, clear coat, and so on and so on. You can turn kind of collapse it and uncollapse it if you as needed. Let's say the basic diffuse is pretty basics. So this is what you get: gain, color, and roughness. You got it also done here. So diffuse color, roughness, diffuse bump. So there's that option here. I'm not gonna do too much with the diffuse. We can quickly go to the next one, primary specular. Let's turn on that thing. This is something that you might know as specular. If you are used to like material like Blinn or Phong, this day we don't have that kind of Blinn or Phong anymore. We just care about the specular and care about the reflections and things like that. There are two distinct options here: the physical and the artistics. If we switch to physical, I think it's behaving more like cycles. Edge color, this is like so you got even like option like Beckman and GGX, just like cycles. You just give it a try, I guess. Trial and error. Normally, the way I'm doing it, if I'm exploring something, I'm using like a really like bright color so I can see the result right away. So I'm using red color for the specular, and this is what we get. See, the name of the attribute is clearer in this node, but the way it's being laid out is a bit difficult to see here, but it's nicer over here. Roughness, the higher the number, actually the smaller the specular that we can see. I'll show you. So if the object is like really smooth, you get more specular. Refraction index, extinction coefficient. I don't know about all those, kind of testing it. Sometimes I prefer the artistic version of it. Artistic roughness is very small. Okay, let's try the Fresnel. I think the smaller the Fresnel, the larger the shine you get. So you can see the red color there. Face color. What's the face color? Let me test it real quick. Blue. Set it to blue. I think it's affecting the diffuse. It's affecting the base color. Now it's starting to look like a metallic. Looks like a wrapping paper actually. Very interesting. Face color. Specular color at 0 degree. Specular color for the facing of the camera. Specular color for the glancing angle of the edges. Okay, that's, I guess, pretty clear. That's with the primary specular. You have the rough specular right here. I think this is just like the primary specular, just another additional specular that you can add on top of this. We can actually enable physical here and kind of mix it with the artistic. That's kind of my guess. Edge color, let's see, let's make it purple. We're gonna end up like a really colorful monkey here. Very rich in shader, I guess. Refraction index by default 1.5, can be higher or lower. I don't know what this extinction coefficient for. Interesting. We're gonna leave that alone. Clear code. Clear code is an interesting one. I think it gives like kind of like a sparkling look, just something that you might see in a for like an expensive car paint. Clear code. If I turn off the specular, maybe we can see the clear code. Yeah, the problem with when I'm doing like recording and rendering is this thing is slow. It feels slow. I think it's safe to say that clear code is basically like the speckles, kind of like really small speckles that you might see in the car paint. It's very interesting looking, but you can't really see it unless you are close up to it. So I'll turn it off. Specular, clear code, that's probably related with each other. The one I like is this iridescence. Something that you might see from insects or bug, like let's say like a dragonfly wings usually have this iridescence kind of look. Let me try increasing the phase gain. Let's have a look at the phase gain first. Oh, now, yeah, it looks like a bug. Some bugs have this iridescent color. Not sure why. Maybe it's to attract the female insect. But that's looking really, really nice. Very it's kind of the, I think the color being twisted depending on the where you're looking at the objects. Phase gain, primary color, secondary color. So there's this red and blue, but you get this green and really weird spectrum of color. Increase it more, what do you get? More metallic. Let me reduce that. How about edge gain? Edge gain is more subtle, probably. Doesn't seem to mix, but if I increase this, increase the edge gain, let's have a look at the difference. I think the phase, so it's looks like there's a lot of like kind of repeated attributes here. Like this one is, so there's a facing to the camera, and there's always the one that's glancing at the glancing angle of the at the edge. So that's probably related to Fresnel here as well. So by mixing this, we get more highlight at the edge or more highlight at the front. I'm kind of guessing there, but I guess this is also like a trial and error. I reckon that by me doing recording like this, and if you're watching this, at least you can speed it up. You know, like you can jump around, and if you download the video, maybe you can just scrub it and look at the different effects of this attribute changing. So iridescence, there's artistic, and there's also physical. Physical looks so different to artistic. Maybe more physically correct, like it behaves like a real material, but yeah, give that a try. Yes, so that's iridescence. What's the next one? Let me see. If I turn off diffuse, okay, we just get black, which means we can actually check. We can check the effects without the diffuse. This is really cool ability to be able to do that. So you can kind of look at the effects of each of these material layer of what do you call it? Not a functions, but it's all this kind of layer: diffuse, primary, specular, etc. So we can turn off everything and just look at the specular, for example. Okay, so that's just the specular, which is, if you think about it, if you turn it into physical, it's gonna behave more like a kind of like a mirror, because the specular itself is just a reflection of the environment. But with the artistics, it looks like, I don't know, I kind of look like this kind of look sometimes. So if I switch to physical, we need probably like environment reflection and whatnot. Turn that off. Let's go to the next one. Fuzz. Fuzz, I think fuzz is the effect that you will see. You often see it in the pitch, in the fruits like peach, and it gives like a small hair softness. Let me give it a bit of color. It looks like it doesn't give any effects unless I turn on diffuse, maybe. Diffuse, let's try fuzz, pink color, fuzz, gain 100%. 100% is, it must be so small that we don't see it. Cone angle. Fuzz is a hair-like property. Its roughness is controlled by a cone angle in degrees. Let me reduce that cone angle. Still cannot see any fuzz. Increase it. There's a slight, like a pinkish color. You can see the dots there, and then wait until it's doing more sample. It's very, very subtle, I think. If I turn off diffuse, there you go. There's the fuzz. It's sort of like I think in cycles we have the velvet material, so that looks like what the fuzz is doing. It's a bit fuzzy. So gain, maybe I can turn up the gain really high, so now you can see the fuzz. Give it like a pinkish color, and this is like a peach color, maybe yellowish. You're gonna get like a kind of like a peach. Very soft look. Okay, that's fuzz. Subsurface scattering on top of that. Let me see if I turn this on. Let's see how it looks. It's still kind of real time, so it's pretty cool. Color. Let's try green and blue. Increase the gain. Starting to see the green. We have different model as well. Multiple mean. Wow, so many options here. I think there are at least 100 of attributes on this Pixar surface material. Subsurface scattering is used to be a very expensive kind of attributes to turn on. Still pretty expensive, but it gives a really nice realistic look, especially if you are using like if you want to create a shader that has a lot of translucency. Definitely you need to enable subsurface. Like if you look at your hand against a lamp, and you can sometimes, if the lamp is really strong, you can see the blood color through your hand basically. So that's really interesting. If I turn off the fuzz actually and turn off the diffuse, we get, wow, we actually get black. Let's try like a diffuse of blue and give it this like a red. Wow, this value is actually really, it's changing really quickly, maybe 0.02. The gain. Gain is, I think, it's like giving like how strong is the effects on the object, so it's kind of like a multiplier. This mean free path distance is really important, so either we get the reddish or bluish or the original color. So that's how I usually think of subsurface scattering. We have the base material, and then you have this color that's two color that's kind of in between. I guess subsurface is something that's a little bit tricky to explain for now. Turn it off. Single scatter. Maybe this is like a cheaper version of that guy up there. It's very useful to create like a skin material. It's very complex thing. Turn on again. And the free path by default it's 10. Make it 4 or 2 or 1. Cannot see too much, but I think it's a bit softer. It's probably clearer if we actually use a texture and have the light scattering inside the material. So subsurface, too complex for now. Let's switch to the next one. Glass. Glass is transparency. So let's increase this. Refraction and reflection. Where is the transparency effects? Thin interior. Reflection gain. Change this color. Okay. Interesting. How do we make it more transparent? Maybe it's in the thinness. Okay, this is like a thin transparent. Maybe I have to reduce the gain and then now it's more transparent. Disable diffuse. It does kind of showing the floor texture behind it. Interesting. Let me switch to 3D view. I'm gonna save this real quick. File, save as. Select the floor, and with the floor I'll make it blue color. Maybe give it a texture. Fractal. Photo noise. Plug into the texture. Now photo noise. Can't really see anything. Fractal. Turn on turbulent. Frequency 10, 20. Yeah, I think with the with the glass, if the diffuse is off, the glass looks very much like glass because it's a kind of transparent and it's refracting and reflecting basically. If I increase this, gonna have like higher reflectivity and then refraction. So the refraction is kind of doing the transparency and it's kind of see through the objects now. If I turn off thin, it's more like a kind of like a solid volumetric kind of object now. It's like a thick kind of glass object. Maybe I decrease this so it's more like kind of like water inside the glass. Really interesting. There's this option for interior as well. Single scatter albedo. Oh, so many things. Scattering. So it has some kind of subsurface scattering there. If I enable diffuse and give it a little bit, now it's more like solid again. Thin. I think the diffuse gain and the refraction gain need to be adjusted so it makes sense. The diffuse and the refractions together should make like a total of 1, value of 1, I guess. Next, with the glow is rather simple, but if I know that if I just increase it, it's just like it's gonna be totally white. So not too much, but just a little bit. We don't want it to be like too flat there. Globals. Bump, shadow. So that's for the bump. And we also have displacement and light emission. So many things. Even so this is one hybrid shader that does everything. It's a very cool one actually. I imagine if you're like a shader artist and you need to create a material, you work through all these and creating layers and layers of material. I used to really like this kind of thing, and I still kind of like doing this. The problem is, of course, being slow, but if your machine is more powerful, this is a little bit faster. Artistic face color, let's give it. I'm gonna make like a really like a random kind of material here. It has everything: clear coat, specular, maybe enable iridescent as well. Wow. I think that's pretty cool enough. Let's wait until it stops. It looks like kind of like a crystal, like a kryptonite. No, it looks like an opal, Australian opal kind of jewelry. It looks like that. Maybe too much of specular there. Back to specularity here, and maybe make it more rough. Slightly better. Maybe this can be physical. Okay. It's gonna even look much better if we have like displacement and texture and bump map. But sometimes before you apply all kind of texture, you make sure the shader looks kind of right. as it is. That's really nice shader, I guess. Even though it's a bit strong there with the specular. Okay, well, that's pretty much me exploring the Pixar surface node. This one shader is something that I wish Cycles Render has. Maybe one day it will have one shader that kind of a hybrid like this. Yeah, and then you can end up with hundreds or thousands or unlimited like a variation of this. In fact, I'm kind of curious if we are using like animation nodes or sphere, just randomize all this value and then spit out like 1,000 different variations, and then you just get the one that you like, and then you start from there. So it's become like a preset. Maybe that's something I should do at some point. Yeah, but anyway, that's pretty much it for this live noding. If you have comment suggestion, let me know.